My name is Mara, and I specialize in software products and implementations for agriculture, commodities, and logistics. And today we're going to build a real life application. We're going to call it the Market Scope Analyzer to help commodities, salespeople, and movers get new prospects in certain market areas given limited information in their current systems. So imagine that you went to a conference, you got a list of brand new prospects. We are going to take that information, analyze it with where your product is, and we are going to impress your leadership with your ability to analyze those market areas super quickly in order to figure out the best locations to sell to. First things first, many people have asked me, what do agriculture and commodities have to do with logistics? And I like to answer that by talking a little bit about what are commodities. So when we think about commodities, we think about corn, we might think about strawberries, minerals, plastics, rock. All of these things have to move from wherever they started out. So corn is in the field to an end user or distributor. And those have to move by logistics. So usually those products are moving by truck, rail, or some sort of a vessel. We're going to jump right into it. When I was earlier in my career, I was not always great at explaining the business case, and my leadership wasn't always great at letting the engineers know the business case either. So we often had questions like, why are we building this? What is the value for the business? Does this make sense? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the business case today. If you're not interested, you can move on to the product development stack, and that'll be listed in the chapters below. After business case, we're going to talk about what artifacts are needed, and that's going to be like a 20-second conversation. Then we're going to jump into the development stack that I'm using to prototype this application. We're going to do a real life demo, and then I'm going to show you how to quickly deploy this somewhere where it can actually be accessed by other users. You could actually move this to your domain later. So what is the business case here? Why do we need to build this market scope analyzer? What does the customer need, and why are we doing this? So we are going to make up a customer for today, and our market scope analyzer customer is going to be an aggregate supplier. And aggregates are rock, gravel, sand, anything that comes out of the ground in that sort of space. And usually they are coming from maybe a quarry. And then the end result is that they're going to a construction site or maybe a distribution site. So as we think about this rock moving, think about it moving via a truck. And for 50 miles, it's going to cost someone $5 a mile to move that. So that would be $250 in freight. All right. So this is why we want to do the market analysis to figure out how close our potential customers are so that we can actually make the best decisions about who to target when we're trying to sell our rock. So our market scope analyzer persona is Maria. Maria is an aggregate sales manager. She's just attended the Aggregates Expo 2025. And she has shaken hands with lots of potential customers, but not everyone. She's collected lots of business cards. She's had a few soda waters or maybe beers. She's had a great time. She's got a lot of information. And she comes home from the conference with a list of attendees from that aggregates conference. Now, she doesn't know everyone on that list. Not everyone in that list is in her CRM or her ERP, but she needs to figure out what to do with this to start analyzing these for her market targeting. So what does the supplier want to do in their analysis? They basically want to bucket these into 3 different market areas so that we can start reaching out, so that Maria and her team can start reaching out to these potential customers. So market area A is going to be less than 50 miles from my origin. Market area B is going to be 50 to 200 miles, and market area C will be 200 plus mile radius. And we're going to look at this on a map right now so that it's super clear to you. Let's say that we have an origin in Des Moines, Iowa. Now, if we just did the calculation from one origin to a destination, so let's say we're moving our rock from Des Moines to Cedar Rapids, that's a very easy calculation. We could just go to Google Maps, look up the number of miles, and we can just be on our way. However, it gets much more complex as we have multiple destinations throughout the Midwest. And Maria theoretically could have come home with thousands of destinations from her list of the destinations that were at the market at the Expo 2025. So what does Maria do? Now, Maria needs to start narrowing these down. So she needs to narrow down first to market area A because she wants to target those destinations first. And those are going to be less than 50 miles from Des Moines. Market area B is going to be that 50 to 200 miles from Des Moines. And then market area C is this vast sea of all other destinations that potentially she could target. Now, it's a low likelihood of winning those deals, but she could potentially do that and she could potentially end up with a big deal out of that, depending on the circumstances. Now, why does this is already complex enough, is analyzing for one origin. So she's trying to ship her rock out of Des Moines, but this gets exponentially more complicated as we add in other origins. So now let's say that they have a quarry as well in Omaha. And Omaha is also going to have a market area A. So she's going to figure out those customers in market area A for Omaha, market area B for Omaha, and then that vast array of others that are in market area C. You can see how this can quickly get complicated, and she might have to do a lot of legwork to figure out who to reach out to first. So that's why we're going to build her the Market Scope Analyzer tool, so that she can quickly match up her information with the information she got from the conference, and she can figure out who to target, and she can start assigning that out and also making those calls herself. So what does Maria need for this demo? Maria actually needs just two things. So she is going to need a list of their origins from her ERP system, so she can download that into Excel. And then she's going to want a list of destinations from the aggregates conference. And she already had that because she received that at the conference. What is the product development stack? So that's probably why you actually joined this today, was to actually figure out how to develop this application. So now we're going to talk about what the technical team actually needs to help Maria and serve the business purpose. What we're going to start out with today is a very generic PRD that I have developed, and you would need to take, anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours to develop a PRD for what you want this application to look like. And then we're going to move into the dev tools and tech stack that you need to develop this application. So we're going to be using GitHub, the Cursor AI IDE, Node, React, Tailwind, and then we are going to deploy using Vercel because they do have a free deployment option, so you guys can see this in action. Now, notice that this is not going to be a production-ready application. I do not, and I'm also not doing any wireframes. I'm not doing much testing here. No error, very little error handling besides what the code will generate for me. No database. So this is just a freestanding app, but it will call your Google Maps API that your organization actually subscribes to through GCP. And it will actually utilize the API. So that makes this a little bit more complex than just a basic application. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pull up our Cursor IDE. And a few things that you might need to know is, okay, all right, let's just stop.